tonight to talk about your project, Dennis Harwich reconstruction and related work on Main Street, Route 28, from Upper County Road to the Herring River Bridge. And we think it's a really good project. Hopefully you'll feel the same way.
Is your mic on?
Oh, you can't hear me? How about
Oh,
that?
that's better.
Okay, sorry. I'll stand closer. Thank you very much for pointing that out. So this project is scheduled to advertise in August of 2024. And right now, we estimate the cost at about $7.8 million. And this is the town of Harwich and Dennis are the proponents of this project. And we're very grateful to them for doing this, since it is state highway. But we're doing as little as possible, but we want to improve the bicycle and pedestrian accommodation, safety, and clean up the roadway. The roadway needs some new pavement, so having gotten those tidbits out of the way, I'm going to introduce Teresa Canoose, who's our right-of-way agent. She will step in and explain the state right-of-way process. Also, before I do that, though, let me introduce the rest of the panel. From MassDOT's District 5 office in Taunton, I have Richard Bilski, who's Assistant Project Development Engineer and the District Utility Constructability Engineer as well. He's a very busy person. And your designer, Stephen Rhodes of Vanass, Hagen and Russlin, Inc. in Watertown, is a terrific engineering firm, and they do a lot of work for MassDOT. He's designed this project for you. And that gentleman behind the curtain is Mr. Greg Tarbox. He's our transcriptionist this evening. We're capturing a verbatim transcript. And so when we do get to the question and answer period, I ask that you spell your last name for Greg so we don't stumble over that later on. So without further ado, let me have Teresa come up and tell us about the right-of-way process.
Hi. My name is Teresa Canoose, and I am here representing the Right-of-Way Bureau at MassDOT. The Right-of-Way Bureau is responsible for acquiring all necessary rights in private and public land for the design, construction, and implementation of this project. Affected property owners will be contacted by personnel from the Right-of-Way Bureau and consultants representing MassDOT. The procedures used must comply with state and federal regulations governing the acquisition process. The current design plans indicate...
Closer to the mic, please.
Thank you.
The current design plans indicate about 25 fee takings and 35 permanent easements may be required. Other areas may also require about 47 temporary construction easements. Affected property owners' rights are protected under Massachusetts general laws, primarily Chapter 79. If a project is receiving federal funds, the property owner's rights are further defined under Title III of the Real Property Acts of 1970 as amended. I will be available to answer any general questions regarding the right-of-way process during the open forum at the end.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so just as a further note, we do have a set of highway plans and right-of-way plans. So after we've done the formal hearing and answered all your questions, we can get together with you over these plans and stay as long as you'd like us to, looking at your, the effects of the project on your property and so on. I should mention that this is federally funded construction. The federal government provides the construction funds. MassDOT, or state of Massachusetts, will provide about 20% typically. The federal government provides the other 80%. But the town of Harwich and Dennis are paying VHB to design this, and I applaud you and thank you very much for that. So without further ado, we'll get to the meat of the program here, and Steve will come up and explain the design.
Hi everyone. So what we want to do tonight is, I'm just going to pretty quickly run through these slides. It's not a super long presentation. We really want to get feedback and take your input on the design in its current state. This design is currently at a 25% level. It's about to go to a 75% level. A lot of the details that have been kind of thought out at this point are setting the roadway geometry, the signal upgrade at Division and Upper County Road, and the overall layout of the pedestrian and bike accommodations. So there's still plenty of room and time for input. So we really just want to have this be at the end in an open forum and take your thoughts and comments on what you see here on the presentation and on the plans that Tom mentioned we have up here. So we're going to run through the project area, where exactly are we reconstructing the roadway, what are the goals and improvements associated with those goals, next steps, and then that open forum. So starting with the team, the towns of Harwich and Dennis, as Tom mentioned, are the project proponents. They were the impetus behind this project becoming a actionable goal here. So that includes all town staff, boards, and committees, the residents of the towns, of course. Through the early project design development, there's been a number of public meetings where we took input and brought that into the design to date. MassDOT Highway Division, the FHWA, as Tom mentioned, is funding majority of the project, so they're involved in an oversight role. The Cape Cod Commission has been instrumental in beginning the discussions on this project that led to those initial sidewalks and brainstorming. And then VHB, my firm, as the official design consultants working on behalf of the towns and MassDOT. So the project is connecting into the recent reconstruction of Route 28 in Dennis, which was phase one of the town of Dennis's plan to reconstruct Route 28. So that's on the west end at the intersection of Upper County and Route 28. And is extending about 3/4 of a mile to the east to the Herring River Bridge. It's not touching anything on the bridge itself. We'll be maintaining the existing roadway width at that point and just paving up to the limit of the bridge joint. So no bridge work involved, just roadway work there. A little bit on the timeline. So going back to March of 2015 was when the town of Harwich first considered this project and the potential for it to be a MassDOT and FHWA funded project. In September of that year, town of Dennis representatives attended a site walk with Harwich, Cape Cod Commission, and MassDOT officials and expressed their interest in joint application for potential project funding. So at that point, we knew we had two towns as proponents, and we would work into Dennis to connect in with that recent work there that just got built. Then we went into May of 2016, and the town submitted project need forms, MassDOT, that outlined the initial scope of the project at the time, without any survey to go on, just ideas of improvements that can be made to match MassDOT directives and policy initiatives. In April of 2017, the MassDOT Project Review Committee accepted the project and stated that it was eligible for funding. So at that point, it became possible to place it on the Cape Cod Commission's regional funding plan for all Cape's municipal projects funding. And in October 2019, I believe we had that in place between 2017 and 2019. And in 2019, we completed the 25% plans, design and right-of-way plans. So what do we want to do? So as I mentioned a moment ago, the town of Dennis recently completed that project on Route 28. And this project is essentially an extension of that to the east. So we're talking about a pretty major regional connected improvement project now, going a mile or so west along Route 28 into Dennis. So we're going to have about 1.75 miles of improved roadway when this is all said and done. Overall, the goals are to improve and promote healthy transportation, so in addition to cars, bikes, and pedestrians and transit. We want to fix the lack of a consistent pedestrian facility throughout the corridor. That's going all the way from Dennisport on the west end to the Herring River side on the east. Along with that will be ADA compliant sidewalks, pedestrian curb ramps, and road crossings. Really major component is to upgrade the traffic signal at Upper County and Division Street. And then we will rehabilitate the roadway surface itself and widen the roadway to provide more space for bikers. Just going to run through a few existing condition photos out there today to kind of illustrate the goals and the need of the project. So this is taken looking east, I believe, toward the center of the project near the area of the church. So there's a lack of a consistent sidewalk here. You can see the bare outline of a sidewalk under the leaves off the grass shoulder there. And that goes in and out. It's not always there. And when it is there, it's a little bit overgrown. So we'll improve on that. Right in the middle of the project corridor, there's some extensive pavement width that can be repurposed. We don't need all this pavement. It can be rededicated to green areas between the road and the sidewalk and landscaping to kind of help beautify that area. looking at the gas station just next to the Division Street intersection, where there are sidewalks, they're not always ADA compliant. So there's some curb ramps here that would need to be reconstructed to get them up to compliance.
Sir, could I ask you to please speak a little bit more slowly?
Sure. This photo is taken on the east end of the project, looking west. This is another illustration of the existing road width. There's an inconsistent shoulder out there currently. So here it appears about a 2 or 3 foot shoulder on the foreground of the photo. On the other side of the street it might be about a foot or less. So this project will seek to make a typical width for that shoulder. And then another photo just illustrating again the shoulders and the lack of pedestrian facilities. So where are we now? So as I mentioned, we've completed the 25% design, right-of-way, utility coordination. We've done some plan revisions based on the preliminary design review that MassDOT performs. We've performed a update to the preliminary right-of-way plans. That's actually ongoing, so I should say that's more in progress right now than anything. We've completed the design justification workbook, which is a standard MassDOT template that details how the proposed improvements are complying or not with their standards. And we've done the soil borings for the proposed traffic signal. So that soil information is in hand and has been taken into account. This is a long list, but all the improvements, they're all important. There's going to be a new 5-foot wide brick and asphalt sidewalk. There'll be updated cement concrete pedestrian curb ramps. The reconstructed roadway will be 11-foot travel lanes and 5-foot shoulders in each direction. There'll be a new edge treatment for the whole width of the project. So that's going to primarily consist of granite curb and Cape Cod berm. So it's a 1-foot wide asphalt berm. The reconstructed signal I mentioned at Upper County and Division Street. There's going to be some relocations of current crosswalks that are out there today. There's going to be some crosswalk additions at the signal. There's going to be sidewalk level lighting that's going to be added. It'll be an extension of what was done in the Dennis Ward projects, and that'll extend up to Silver Street. There'll be some landscaping elements. There'll be some street trees that can be planted in some of these areas. There'll be some signage updates for consistent signage along the roadway. And then there's going to be a pretty major utility component to this, which has just recently come into play. The town of Harwich is advancing a sewer and water reconstruction along the corridor, and MassDOT recently agreed to take on that work as part of this contract as a non-participating cost. So the state and the federal government won't fund the specific installation of the sewer and water line, but they'll allow it to be part of this bid. So there will be one bid, one contract of the bids on all the work, which will reflect a pretty substantial cost savings for the town. The town also won't have to pay for the repaving of the road. It'll just be done once. So that'll be a significant savings there. This is an elevation view if you were standing in the center of the roadway, looking down it. You see those 11-foot travel lanes and the 5-foot shoulders, which have space for both vehicles and bikers, and the 5-foot wide sidewalk on both sides. Toward the middle of the corridor, where there's more of that existing pavement width, we can repurpose that and add a grass strip in. So on the right side of the slide, there's a little segment of grass. We could make this wider. This is actually going to be wider in implementation, but basically a separated green buffer between the bike lane and the sidewalk. These next few slides are going to run through some aerial views. So this is a current aerial base of the corridor with the proposed pavement width and the sidewalk build-out superimposed on top of it in color. So anywhere you see darker color, that's all the proposed work limits. So again, we're starting on the west side at Upper County Road, and we're going to work our way east. So this slide shows the development of the brick sidewalk extension. This is actually going to, the brick sidewalk in red will extend further. I believe we're planning for it to go to Silver Street to correspond with the end of the pedestrian scale lighting. So that'll be a synced up design there. The traffic signal will have some minor geometric updates to the roadway today. At Upper Coney Road, we're going to kind of bow out the right turn lane that's there today, just to slow people down a bit more there, but the signal will still function as it does today. We're working east now, so Silver Street is in the middle of the slide on the bottom. The sidewalk is continuing on both sides of the road, 5 feet wide. Continuing east, we get to Belmont Street and Depot Road West. Same idea. We have the bike lanes in the roadway, 11-foot travel lanes, 5-foot sidewalk on both sides of the road. This section, because of the constrained nature, we don't want to impact the properties too much at the back limits of the project. We are proposing granite curb here, so we have a narrower footprint. The middle of the project, you can see in green the space between the sidewalk and the roadway, which is showing those grass strips. So we have some separation between the road users, the bikes and the vehicles, and the pedestrians here. And another opportunity for some street trees potentially. That's not shown on this slide right now, but that'll be developed as we go into the 75% design level. We're continuing east, and we have some more green space. The right-of-way is pretty wide through here, so there's room again to improve the area with landscaping. We pass Riverside Drive, and we're almost at the end. And this shows the tie-in to the Herring River Bridge, which has a wider pavement section, but since we're not continuing over and past the bridge, we're not narrowing that. We have to match in there to meet the conditions as they are today.
Sorry, can you go back one slide? Our house was there.
Yeah, we can't see, you're saying it right in front of the.
That's slide one before this.
All these plans are also up here.
Okay, so
Yeah, happy to pause on it.
That's fine.
that's great, thank you.
Yep. I have a clicker too, so I should be using that. So as Teresa mentioned, this is just a summary of the right-of-way impacts. So there's permanent and temporary right-of-way needs that will be coming through as part of this project. So representatives from the state or consultants will be in contact with the abutters who are impacted by that. For permitting needs, we're planning on a notice of intent filing with the Conservation Commission for the work within the resource area at the Herring River. We don't have any direct impacts to the river, so that's a good thing. And we anticipate we'll be able to have a successful NOI filing locally. Traffic impacts, any of the work that's done by the contractor will follow the manual and uniform traffic control devices, typical setups, so that'll involve the standard menu of items, drums, cones, signage, police details. And then there's, of course, the summer work moratorium. So any work impacting traffic will likely be shut down between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So where do we go from here? So tonight we're going to take your feedback and take that in and count that in the 75% design submittal as best we can. We're going to work on that submission and get it into MassDOT for a review at the end of March. Then the project progresses with the 100% design and the final design, which are due respectively in June and October of this year. At that point, the right-of-way acquisitions become the critical path in the project, and we jump up to July of 2024 to finalize those acquisitions. And then we advertise the project for contractors to bid on in August of 2024. So in addition to tonight, there's a number of ways you can get in contact with representatives here to give your feedback and ask questions. Comments can be sent into MassDOT via the handout printed at the table where you walked in. You can simply write in and mail your comments that way. You can email. And then, of course, we're here tonight to hear your concerns and questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Tom.
Great job. Steve, thanks very much. It's a lot of information to get through. And we appreciate your running us through it. So I just want to reiterate that the whole purpose tonight, from our perspective, is to hear what you think of this and to hear your suggestions and criticisms so that we can incorporate what we can of your comments into the project and end up with a better job. And we will stay here as long as you'd like us to be here. What else did I want to mention? Steve gave us a set of right-of-way plans for this project last week. I'm going to get another set from him on Friday for the job we were down here talking about last Tuesday. And he's the busiest man in Massachusetts right now. He's designing 4 or 5 projects on the cable. He's very busy. And he's real good at what he does. So I just want to reiterate that all this is doing is extending what we did in Dennis into Harwich, the same cross-section. And we're taking a lot of the same enhancements, like the brick sidewalk and the ornamental lighting that's coming into Harwich as well. I think it's going to be a very nice job and improve that corridor, which is so pretty already and very historical. We don't want to detract at all from that. We want to enhance it and make it safer and more pedestrian friendly. And so with that, I'll be quiet and ask anybody who has a question if they could just, Greg has requested this week, we struggled last week to hear what people were saying when they commented from their seats. So if I could ask you, just come up here to the front here, you know, say right about in here so his microphone can pick you up. And just ask us the question and we'll do our best to get you an answer. And if you could, again, if you could just spell your last name when you introduce yourself. So, who's got a question? Somebody's got to have some questions. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name's Larry Flatley, it's F-L-A-T-L-E-Y, and I'm on the eastern end of the project. Now, a couple of things I'd like to know. The center line of the road, is that going to be exactly where it is now? Or is it going to be offset anyway?
At some points in the project, it does move around a little bit. But essentially, it's, you know, right where it is today.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the question I have now is, the eastern end where I am, on the corner of North Street and Route 28, it's very tight right there in front of a lot of houses, and the houses being close to the road itself. Is there any way of getting a shorter or less, a 4-foot sidewalk as opposed to 5 foot?
Technically, the technical answer is yes. We can do a 4-foot sidewalk for up to 200 feet. And then you have to provide passing zones either end of that so that someone in a chair can get by sidewalks. But it's possible. We don't like to bury the width of sidewalks for obvious reasons. It kind of detracts from the look. And but we do see. Are you on the north side?
Yeah, on the corner of North Street and Route 28. Right across from that professional building.
Oh. So we do have some green there. Oh, you're right there. So see all that green we're adding?
Yeah.
So that's all going to be replanted, loamed and seeded.
Okay.
So you end up with more green area than you have now.
I see that they put some spray paint along the sidewalk too. Is that where the road's gonna go, or?
No, they have, no.
Or that?
No layout has begun. We're still designing.
And my last question is probably
Maybe.
crazy, but is there different types of asphalt that you can put down? Because one of the biggest things in that area is the tire noise.
Yeah,
Is there any way to mitigate that?
it's a common complaint. Unfortunately, no. State highway, we have a specified pavement that we find is the most cost-effective, long-lasting, safest. They go through unbelievable testing to design the pavements for our projects. A lot of it's also dictated by the federal government. In fact, a lot of MassDOT design guides that Stephen has to follow are dictated by federal highway and MassDOT. MassDOT tweaks them a little bit in certain instances to suit Massachusetts, but primarily this is all determined by federal highway administration, you know, lane widths and so on, striping signage.
Now the sewer work, which side of the street is that going to be on?
Stephen, I defer to you. Is it down the middle or what?
I believe they're planning on putting it under one of the travel lanes. Rich, do you remember?
Don't recall, because I know we're doing water line and sewer.
Yep.
And I believe it was going to be a high, there's some gravity, I think was going down the center line. There's also some force.
So,
And hopefully that mix.
So we're trying to fit proposed range improvements, so that gives its own space. Water line improvements, which aren't going to take the same exact footprint of the current water line, is going to be offset from that. And then potentially the two sewer lines.
so we've got the center line and we've got the center of the two travelways.
Right.
So it's one of those three choices. I don't have an answer. Link, do you know offhand?
No.
If it's on the south side of the road or in the south, you know, the eastbound lane or the westbound lane? We can find out for you
Okay.
easily.
So, on the list.
Put it, you know, mark it up, and I get all the comments. I've been getting a bunch from last week, and we will respond to you. And I think I have some good news coming shortly. I don't want to commit to something right now, but it looks like we might be able to extend the sidewalk that people were asking last. But if you write it down and give it to me at the end of the meeting, or mail it in, we'll ask you.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming. Yeah, not an inch closer.
Lou Urbano, URBANO, Riverside Drive. I'm really pleased to hear first that you have identified that as a historic area.
Yes.
And the hope would be that in the later stages of planning, that that's kept in mind
Oh, yeah.
to keep a uniformity from one end of the project to the other. So when I hear sidewalks and brick, will there be brick going throughout the whole area? Will there be a mixture within the brick? Will there be some, all within keeping of what was done in Dennis?
Correct.
Throughout the whole
The
process?
brick doesn't go the whole length of the project. It stops, where, into the church?
About 500 feet east of Union Street, Silver Street.
So at Upper County, we come about 500 feet into Harwich. And
So recommendation, which is what you asked, this.
yes, yeah, I just want to hear it. Yeah.
It would really be great if that whole area could be uniform without a breakage. It doesn't have to be all brick, in my opinion. Of course, it depends on everybody. But it could be brick and cement. It could be some kind of breakup to make it unique. And the second is the importance of the lighting. That was one of the key elements.
Ornamental lighting. We've got some ornamental lighting in this job.
Throughout. Not 2 or 3 here, but so that it pulls everything together.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's the key fact. The key fact isn't just right here in this one section,
Right.
but
That's a shopping area, that's why.
well, but this is a historic residential and shopping area, and it's expected to change in the future, and this road can be a tremendous catalyst for that.
I
So so we really, that's another suggestion, is that there's uniformity in streetlights that go from one end all the way to the bridge.
Well, let me ask Stephen, am I correct in saying that the ornamental lighting is at the Dennis end of the project, or does it extend the whole length?
You're correct. It ends at the Silver Street point right now.
What street?
At Silver Street?
Silver Street. You do speak kind of fast.
That's okay. So that's again another. So, and again, these are like trade-offs in my mind, because
Yeah.
the elephant in the room is taking the land. And then, okay, and so where are the trade-offs?
Yeah.
And so this would be viewed as that. The other is when you say trees in some areas.
Yeah.
Well, this is an opportunity
Yes.
to take that area and to make it uniform,
Right.
so that it has a unique character in and of itself.
Right.
These aren't that expensive.
No, in fact, we love trees.
Right, so do we.
As long as we don't have to maintain them.
Well, that's how I feel about the granite sidewalk.
Yeah.
Or the granite.
So we're going to ask Lincoln to sign a maintenance agreement.
Well-
Tom Andre, I'm still waiting for yours.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you asked for suggestions.
Yeah, no, I did, yes.
Is it a state requirement that they be those nice granite, which as soon as the snow plow hits, they crack and break, and then they're never fixed, no matter what the maintenance agreement says. So is there another vehicle, has anything else been used, so that doesn't become a problem? That's all. So that would be something to look into.
Those are all very good comments.
Okay.
We use granite curb where we get street drainage. We use granite curb and I beg to differ, but it doesn't crack. The reason we use granite is because the plows can run their blade up
What's
next
there
to it.
now? What's there now?
I don't know if
It's
it's,
granite.
there's nothing there.
It's granite in some places, and it's broken. Where there's granite,
Well-
it's broken. So that's a reality. You can drive around.
But it's the toughest stuff around. I mean, it's
Right.
much tougher than
That's
asphalt.
there's another way I would ask that you look at it.
Yeah.
It would make a lot of people, again, trade-offs. Okay, the other thing is where the church is.
Yes.
When we first looked at this, and I guess it was 15,
Yeah, correct.
15,
there was a big deal made out of that was an area that maybe we could put some kind of bench area there and seating so people could sit and so forth. And now I just heard green. So again, the suggestion is that's like a
Get some enhancements in there. Sure.
okay.
Some
So
landscaping, maybe a bench or two.
again, I'm not the expert on this. I don't have the vision.
It's all
All I
money.
have is
It's all driven by
questions.
But plants are cheap, like you said. Plants are inexpensive, trees are inexpensive.
barriers so the car doesn't run into a bench
Right.
that's attractive, that kind of thing.
And that's the other thing about vertical granite curbing is it allows us to reduce the full roadway width because we can put the sidewalk next to the travel way because there's that protection.
I'm not understanding, I'm bringing up
No, yeah, no,
things that hopefully you can look at,
Yes,
and
that's what we're looking for.
through correspondence, perhaps we can then
Yeah.
sit and get to a conclusion that everybody agrees on.
The other thing I didn't mention that I've forgotten but now remember is that Stephen's going to have us a 75% submittal at the end of March. He's got 3 others to generate too, but I'm holding him to the end of March for this job and the other sidewalk job we talked about last week. We will get the next iteration of design. So these are excellent comments.
So not only that, Stephen, if that's your goal, is to prevent other problems that occur in other areas, because here, once 75% is done, it's done. There's very little change you're going to do.
That's correct.
All right? Maybe we can have a meeting with a few of the residents who live there to give that input again into what you're doing, so that when it comes to 75%, there are signs of it, and everyone's saying no, and we're all happy together.
That's why we're here tonight, is to get your
Well,
comments.
hopefully you're getting, but
I can't promise you that we can do everything you've asked.
I understand, but in doing so, it's a two-way process.
Right.
There is flexibility, I think. on
There
the part of all
is,
residents.
absolutely.
But there's also the
We wouldn't
need.
be here if there was no.
Yeah, the only reason I'm asking this is because we were told as residents that we would be part of this process up until the 75%.
And you are, that's why we're here tonight.
So I understand. So a lot of time has passed without our input. And now we're saying, okay, we held off, now it's time, either reach out to us, or it's not going to be gee, I'd like you to do this, it's going to be, you're going to take how much land?
I get your point.
Okay.
This isn't our first rodeo.
Okay, we're on the same page then.
And that's why we're here tonight, is
Right.
to hear exactly what you're saying.
The other thing is, and I don't know if the federal funds will allow for this, but I'll ask, is there allowance for 50 days for the whole area could have fencing? So it's all in uniform, keeping its historic nature? Don't know if the federal government would allow funds for that. Whether it be an allocation to the residents, or whether it be that the state puts it in.
If it were up to me, I'd say yes, but it's not, and I don't think they will fund that.
Good, how do we try?
Well, it would end up on private property. We don't maintain picket
That's
fences.
why you allow it. If you put it in, then you get so much for your foot. If you don't, you don't.
Let's discuss after we've heard everybody else.
That's why I say, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. How about someone else? Some other ideas? Yes, sir.
I just was wondering, when do you notify,
Could you tell us who you are and do it around here? Thank you so much. Spell your last name, if you would, for the...
Ralph Diamond, D-I-A-M-O-N-D,
Thank you.
103 Route 28. I was just wondering, when do you notify people that a portion of their property is subject to the right of way?
So, once we have finalized the design to the point where we know exactly what the right-of-way impacts are, that will occur around between 75% design and 100%. So, this summer, probably, this summer. Teresa's process is extensive. I think they approach each abutter up to 5 times, correct? In person to negotiate, a reasonable, appropriate fee for whatever rights we were trying to acquire. It might be an aerial easement that doesn't affect it might be a temporary construction easement. Most of them are, I think there's 40 something. That just means we buy the rights to have a worker stand, adjacent to the back sidewalk while they build a sidewalk across your frontage. And then that expires, and they no longer have that right because the job's built out. We usually buy 5 years worth of temporary easement rights. We have a 5-year sunset on it. There are utility easements. Utilities might be underground, most likely. They are a utility pole that has a 5 square foot box around it. If it's on the edge of your property, we try to put them, on the property lines between 2 properties so they're least impactful to people. But even though it might be on the very edge of your property, we need a 5-foot box around it so that a worker can climb the pole if they need to. So on.
Thank you.
Very good. Yes, come on up. Come on down.
Hi, Chelsea Nicholas, consultant, I see Buildings, on the corner of Riverside and 28. I have a few questions. One is a timeline. So you're bidding out for jobs in August 24. When do you expect to open on this project?
If we can get a contract awarded, it usually takes, I don't know, 90 days or so to answer all the contractors' questions and then give them 2 weeks to finalize their bids. And we review the bids and award it. We might be able to award it, say, 90 days from the middle of August. We're butting up against the end of the, what's it, November. So they might start doing some very preliminary things, probably wouldn't even notice that they've begun, they might be surveying or laying out some work. But, so in earnest, you'd see it next spring of 25.
Okay. And given the constraints of
Probably
seasonality?
3 or 4 half years because of the moratorium. We don't want to disrupt your summer down here. So we stop from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So you have a spring and fall each year. It'd probably take 2 springs and 2 falls.
And would you work that in segments, so there's minimal disruption, or would it be an ongoing process?
No, they work in segments. Usually,
So we wouldn't necessarily see construction right in front of our house for 4 consecutive construction?
absolutely not. They would probably do, typically they widen first if they need to. There's not much widening at all on this job. We're reapportioning the pavement to the shoulder. The lanes out there today are a little wider than what we're going to stripe on this project. I think we gain a couple of feet there. We give that to the shoulder. We might be moving the back sidewalk out a little bit to create some green space between the pavement and the sidewalk. But anyway, they widen first. First they do utility work, then they have extra room to move traffic around so that they can lay down curbstone and what have you. And then their final work is to put the wearing surface down and stripe it.
And with the septic work that's going to be done, this is obviously.
The sewer?
Yeah, the sewer work.
So that will be done.
When the town's actually going to convert to sewer, or is there just laying that foundation?
Yes, Lincoln, this is a great idea by Harwich and Dennis to piggyback on our road work because all you're buying now is the pipe and the trench and the backfill of the trench. But we administer the construction, our roadway contractor will put the sewer pipe in. We will pave over it. It's a big cost savings, maybe a quarter to a third of the cost of your sewer work will be picked up by the road project. And the question was, when are you going to tie services?
When is, do you know when the service will be tied in?
I don't know. Lincoln, do you have any idea?
I don't think anybody can answer that question right now.
Fair enough.
No, this is just a cost-saving measure. This is really brainstorming. If it comes together, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, but the whole Cape's working on the same idea.
What will happen though is the pipes go in, they will provide the sub out up to the property line. So they will sub out behind the sidewalk.
Okay.
Oh,
So we don't have to go to the sidewalk
I mean,
and
that's
roll
it.
up.
Yeah,
So the services will be brought up there, then when the system comes online, I'm sure they'll be notified, but
Yeah.
then you'll be responsible for tying it.
I don't know if anybody can hear what Rich is saying, but as part of the sewer work, we will carry the service lines to the edge of the roadway layout, which is, your backside.
To the property line.
To your property line, yeah, and then you would just have to connect, you would just have to bring your service connection to that point, the edge of your property.
Actually, one more question, that is, I'm looking at railway concerns for number 4, just because this is in the historic district, there's, you're saying that there's sufficient infrastructure to demolish if they don't meet the right way, or this is obviously.
Oh,
That's what we're saying.
That letter goes into every single project, we're not taking any buildings and knocking them
Okay,
down.
so I know there's some that are a little further west that are a lot closer to possibly where the sidewalk needs to be, and if there are issues.
We're not buying any structures and knocking them down, I can promise you, absolutely not. Rest assured.
That was it, thank you.
Okay, yeah, no, the only one on the Cape that I can think of is the Camel Alliance building in Hyannis. We bought that, took that out. No, nothing on this. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Sally Urbano, U-R-B-A-N-O. Let's go with it.
first, of course, is that we're now district of critical family concern, and some issues are delineated in the second, Mass Historic has designated us as a very important area.
Sal, get the mic. Nobody can hear.
Let me get, yeah. You fast talkers, it's tough to hear you when you get that.
So much to say. The second resource is that Mass Historic has designated for us 23 plus homes in that area and has accepted us to move forward with a National Register designation, which of course is a federal program, but that would be very important into how this roadway looks. Second is a lovely document by the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation. It's called Terra Firma, and perhaps you're already familiar with it, but it tells how we can both have sidewalks and bike lanes, but really maintain the views and the historic nature of our roadways. I love that one. And then the final one is the Harwich Reconnaissance Report of Heritage Landscape. That was put on by Boston University for the town of Harwich, and specifically calls out the West Harwich area of Route 28 as being very important. So, with that in mind, I remember when we walked, we talked about Silver Street as sort of being one design area, and then coming after Silver Street into an area that is more residential with small business, and we're going to make some, a bit of a difference in that area. So my question is this, in terms of sidewalks, I know that you have different configurations you can use. Sometimes there's shared bike and sidewalk. Which of those choices, and I think there's 4 or 5, would actually make the smallest impact?
That's what you're seeing right now, the smallest impact. It's the
There's
sidewalks.
no other way to make it smaller.
Not comply with, we have 5-foot wide sidewalks and they're right up against the edge of the travelway, right up to the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have the vertical granite. Because if we didn't have vertical granite, we need a 3-foot minimum grass strip between the sidewalk and the roadway to give vehicles more of a recovery space. So we figure the best way to protect your beautiful historic village is to make our footprint as small as we can and still provide access for everybody. And we think we've gotten a reasonable compromise here because we're putting the bikes in the 5-foot shoulder. There's no shoulder out there in a lot of parts in this corridor right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taking some width from the lanes, putting it in the shoulder, and then behind the shoulders we have 2 5-foot sidewalks. And that's the absolute minimum width we could put there and get sidewalks on both sides and 2 5-foot shoulders.
Okay, I hear you. I'm a visual, like many of my component people. And I know over in Falmouth there was a lot of difficulty because there were a lot of takings of properties. Will you stake this out so that as a visual persons, we could see exactly what it's going to look like?
Not in any formal way. I mean, this is going to cost the town more money to bring someone out there to survey these stakes. But if you want to see what it looks like, just drive west. The minute you hit Dennis, you'll see exactly what we're going to do here. For the, 2 miles we did in Dennis? Thereabouts, from the Dennis Harwich town line, 2 miles west is what we're doing here, the 5-foot shoulders, 5-foot sidewalks. With some grass where there's room. So you can see there on the north side of the road, the upper side, well, on both sides of the road, we've got grass in between the sidewalk and the roadway, which still no right-of-way takings. The red line represents the roadway layout. So we fit the job, or Stephen, I should say, has fit this job within the existing layout almost the entire length of the project. There are tiny slivers where we're encroaching on private property, but almost the entire width is fit within the existing layout.
And is there any straightening of the roadway? The bends are left? Okay, good.
It'll look very much like it does now, except a lot prettier.
Okay. Thank you.
I appreciate your patience with us. I know that all this stuff takes way longer than you think it should. I understand that. I live on a road as well, and it desperately needs to be redone. There's a lot of environmental permitting, some of which is historic in nature. We have a cultural resources unit that has to get this permitted because it is a historic district. They evaluate it according to Harwich and Massachusetts and national standards for historic areas to make sure we're not diminishing the historic nature of the area. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Duncan Berry, EER1. First of all, this looks great. This is my way of looking at it. It's nice to see some progress going along. I mean, we've all been kind of paying attention to this in the background. I have a couple of concerns and interests in this, what you're doing here. First of which is the business of induced traffic. I don't know if you're familiar with it, I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but people are here. It could not be that, like, you know, you can widen roads, or the travel area, and that's not going to decrease traffic. It's actually, you know, kind of encourages higher speed traffic. And one of the big benefits, I think, what you guys did in Dennisboro was traffic is slowed down. And I think that's, number one, that's important for the culture of pedestrian life. Analog living is like, this is what the Cape offers. This is something different from going up to a suburb or an urban area. So the more we can slow things down, I'm very much interested in that side of things.
Yep.
I think especially as a historic district, when people understand and see that we've got basically this telescoping series of buildings from 1740 to 1940, every major style of American residential architecture, except for one, is represented, and this is the only slot in 28 in Chatham and So we're kind of like the microcosm of 6A, and it's at 1.1 miles. So I want to make sure that that is kind of celebrated.
Yes.
And so the idea of induced traffic, I think, is an important thing, taking that, slowing it down. So kind of splitting these things off, I think this is, so far as I can tell, to the extent that we can continue that pattern in the downtown Dennisboro area. Then when it widens up, believe it or not, that's when people would have like almost 12 feet to play with.
Yeah.
That's what they have on, 7 mile an hour highways.
Right.
So people feel comfortable going a lot faster. I don't want them to feel comfortable, not only for the sake of people who have houses and children and front lawns and everything. I think that's an error. But I think it's also, it diminishes the kind of cultural asset that this little stretch has. So that's one of them. So second thing is if I may make a critique, I love the idea of the continuity of the historic lamps and lighting that we call decorative, because I think these circa 1970 arc lights that are about 40 feet off, I mean, this looks like Houston or something.
Right.
This is not appropriate. Bringing it down, having those beautiful profiles that you did in I think that's great. However, I would love to see them located at the Belmont West Depot Street, or Depot Street West intersection, which is the apex of the curve of Captain's Road. It is the center of the monuments that are there. So this slide doesn't do justice to it because it looks kind of like a straight. It's actually this arc. And the peak of the arc, both in terms of altitude and geometry, is the church. So we have a beautiful monument right at the top. I would like to celebrate that with lamps and the brickwork at that intersection with celebrated, crossways. That is another way to kind of dampen the induced speed, induced traffic issues that we have there.
That's where the pavement widens out, correct?
That's where it was.
And we're eliminating that extra width.
Correct.
For landscaping. But
the idea of having,
like that gentleman said, we can maybe add some enhancements.
instead of having the kind of that strip from all the way to Silver Street, which is kind of moribund, right? I mean, there isn't a lot of foot traffic there. You're providing lamp area for activity that doesn't occur. What's really interesting about this particular intersection now is not only is this is where kind of the settlement started in the 1630s. Okay. So this is a long, deep history with records of human habitation 7,000 years before that.
Yeah.
But at that intersection, We also have developments going on by an individual in this room who is putting in 10 units. And then there's another project at that intersection that's going to have over a dozen. We may have 30 people at that intersection. Activity, producing activity for commerce, retail trade, pedestrian activity. So I think that in the future, we're going to see a lot more density of activity
Oh,
there.
sure.
And so this is why we're bringing it down. So I would very much like to see that. And then the last and final thing I'll mention is, can I take a look at that first slide where the, what's Noble House, which is at Silver Street, the southwest corner. That is the so-called, that's the 1740 half house.
Oh,
And that's very close. So it looks like they are actually going to gain some land. Thank you so much, Gloria and Chelsea Stale. So you said you have up until about 10 o'clock tonight. I only have a few more points. Thank you so much.
I appreciate your comments, and I do want to reiterate that we're reducing the lane width from 12 to 11. What's out there today is 12. And like you pointed out, sir, that if people are more comfortable driving faster in wider lanes, a recognized way to calm traffic is to narrow down travel way. So we're doing that. We've got 11-foot lanes, big bright white, edge lines, a nice double yellow. People will have to travel a little slower to stay in their lane. And I think it will slow people down a little bit. And we hope to enhance these areas that people have pointed out, you sir, and others, where there's opportunity, where we're gaining green space. Again, the key is money. It's always money. And Rich and I can go back to our offices and see if there's any enhancement funds we can attract to this project, and maybe we can buy a bench or something. I can't guarantee anything, but we'll see what we can do. We have done that in the past. I think the brick sidewalk in Dennis was us. Was MassDOT you? Anyway, I see another hand up. Yes, sir. Yeah, come on up.
Hi, I'm John Carey. I have a property behind the church.
Is that K-E-R-R-Y?
C-A-R-E-Y. And I want to say, thank you guys for what you're doing. Everything, whatever you do is going beautiful. So we appreciate it. I think it should improve every single property value on the street, regardless. The one thing that, if it's possible, I would love to see is continuation of the streetlights. I live in Hyannis, actually, and a road next to us, they did the streetlights all the way down. And the streetlights alone took it from kind of dumpy area to just absolutely beautiful.
There, sure.
And then with regard to trees, and even if you guys can't get them in, if you leave the neighborhood grown, you just gorgeous have trees and trees there.
We would love to plant trees with you. Put in as many as we can fit.
So you guys will.
We have a whole landscape division that's just itching to plant stuff.
Yeah, and then also kind of what Duncan was saying with that main intersection of Depot Street there. What about doing four sides of crosswalks so you can kind of cross the street more appropriately? Right there at Depot.
So we have one just 100 feet or so to the east.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you said you're putting it on the church.
We're kind of center of the church. Yeah, I think the idea is that this could become the amenity area.
Yeah.
So keep that as the crossing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So the lighting, those are non-participating lights, I believe. But are they? I think they're participating.
Oh.
Well, we'll have to take a look, see what our money looks. Yeah, we'll just print some more. It's all being recorded. We're right up against it now, so we're currently, the TIP program, maybe you didn't pick it up when Steve mentioned it, but our transportation improvement program for this area is managed by the Cape Cod Commission in Barnstable Village. And they allot funding for the various projects occurring on the Cape. And we have a rolling 5-year program. And it's our job, Rich's and mine, and our professional nudges. We just bug Steve constantly to advance this design, keep it on track, keep it on schedule so we can advertise, because we need to advertise according to the TIP program schedule, otherwise we lose the funding. And every resident in Harwich would be very angry with us. We don't want that. But anyway, I digress. So we have been allotted 7.8 million, and our cost is currently at like 8.4, which is about as far above the tip allotment we're allowed. We're allowed to exceed it by up to $500,000. So at some point, we're probably going to have to, and the longer, by August 2024, things are going to be more expensive than they are today. Inflation in general is high right now, but construction work inflation is typically a little higher than what we all experience as consumers. Construction work gets expensive very fast. And I'm going to stop and ask this gentleman to speak. But having said that, if we can find some money, we'll buy some more lights.
Mark Kelleher, Harwich Road, West Harwich.
Can you spell that for us?
Sure, Kellelher. I see you're doing some traffic improvements. Those lights, during the summer, I can wait 2 or 3 cycles to get past Division Street.
Yeah.
And as a result, what happens is, not only myself, but other people are dumping off into the side streets. So I don't know if you can address that with timing, whatever, but that is a major concern during the summer.
That's a great comment. Something we haven't really talked about tonight, but there is a signalized intersection here, right? And we will be installing the state-of-the-art signal equipment. I'm sure what's out there now is not even close. Which will have, modern timing. Detection, yeah, better detection than what's there now. Oh, they're just timed. So, yeah, we'll have detection, so when there are cars there, it picks up on it, and when the queue gets to a certain length, then is it adaptive, or is it just?
No, this operates as one intersection, essentially, so.
Okay.
The reality is it won't solve the backup that you experience in the summer, but it'll help things a bit. We're not, the traffic counts didn't really report a large number of left turns onto Division Street south or northbound from Route 28, so we're not really able to widen out the intersection, and I don't think the project is a great fit for that, just the character of the area necessarily. So it's not going to be a life raft, if you will, for the summer traffic, but it should help move things a little bit more efficiently.
Right. The new equipment works better than the old equipment.
Yeah.
So if there is no vehicle detected waiting, it just is green?
I believe it should have to stay with the traffic.
So it should improve somewhat. Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Sidewalk, TWORBK. I'm in so far over my head, I don't even know where to start. But I'm just curious about bike lanes, and I'm sure that's part of the state mandated what you do when you improve the roadway. But when I think about it, I don't see bike lanes coming from either Upper County or the center of Dennisport, and I don't see bike lanes on the other side of the Herring. So then my brain says, why do we need these bike lanes if we're taking, property away? And then my secondary comment is, so then residents of the area will maybe take advantage of the bike lanes, but then they've got to come in side streets and somehow navigate a turn onto the bike lane. So maybe if you could just talk a little bit about bike lanes, I'd feel better.
Don't get me started. Bike lanes are a major point of contention where I work. We have some avid bicycle advocates who want enormous bike lanes and, the cars be damned. On this job, because of this neighborhood, we don't want to impose those on this historic area. We don't want to increase our footprint there. We just want to redistribute it a little bit so that bikes have the 5-foot shoulder, which does exist in Dennis. I'm pointing to your Dennis town engineer over here, Tom Andre, who's worked with.
Okay.
So they are there at that end. I don't think we've improved in a while the end on the other side of the bridge, going east at the other end of this job. So you're correct, there are no wide shoulders going east from the end of this job, the Herring River, but from the Herring River 2 miles into Dennis, there are 5-foot shoulders, and there will be as soon as this is built. And that's where the bikes will go, because it's relatively safe, because the travel speed on Route 28 here is 35 miles an hour. Any faster than that, and we are obligated by federal and state policy to get them off the road. That changed, I don't know, a year or two ago. Now, if this was a 40-mile-an-hour roadway, we'd have to find at least an 8-foot side path. We give them these different names. Basically, it's a fat sidewalk where the bikes would be. But we really fought hard to get this thing approved in its current footprint, so we could, keep our footprint as narrow as possible. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Quick question. In the future, after the new green spaces.
Who are you, ma'am?
Oh, Ann Stewart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T.
Can you come up here so we can hear you? Because we can't. His mic won't pick it up.
It was just going to be a quick question.
24. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Okay, the
What was
new
your name again,
green-
please? Sorry.
Stewart, Ann Stewart.
Ian, thank you very much.
The new green-
S-T-E-W-A-R-T.
S-T-E-W-A-R-T. The new green spaces, whether they be grass, trees, whatever.
Yep.
Who's going to maintain them going forward?
Well, within the layout, MassDOT is obligated to take care of it. Sometimes we ask the town, we work out an agreement with the town. I'm not putting Mike on the spot, I just can't go to it tonight, but I'll grant you, MassDOT is not great at maintaining our property. We try to plant things that don't require maintenance. But if there are enhancements, like in the center of a roundabout, for instance, we always try and arrange an agreement with the local businesses, for instance, to agree to maintain, and we'll plant whatever they want in there, as long as they maintain it. So, to answer your question, we're obligated to maintain the grass and stuff that's within the roadway layout. In between those two red lines, which you can barely see, but basically, where this project is delineated on that screen, from edge to edge, we're obligated to maintain. Now, there's some grass outside the layout that is, that would be the abutting property's responsibility to maintain. And we're just, is that a slope?
I think it's just a slope.
Just a tie in.
Not designed the new sidewalk to the existing.
So if the sidewalk's a little higher than the adjacent property, we low and seed a gentle slope to tie the property
If
into
the
the
residents
backside.
and the people, then we then responsible for maintaining the grass.
Yeah, anything outside the sidewalks is pretty much private property, so that would be maintained by the abutters, adjacent. Anything within the strip between the sidewalk and the roadway, like there, in that brick portion of Main Street area right there, and that area above there, that.
Part of that, I think part of that is in the ocean.
Oh, that's also, yeah.
There's a layout line that defines Upper County Road. So, yeah, part of this might come down to whether the business wants to take on maintenance of trees, if they fit in there. We'll have to see where the line actually falls. It didn't come through on this plan, but it's there. Yeah.
So mostly MassDOT, but.
I know that weeds love to grow in cracks and granite curves.
Oh, yeah. They'll grow into it.
Can't go along the ground though, that's not allowed.
No, thank you for your comment. Appreciate it. What else we have? We will stay here, if you don't want to speak formally, perfectly understood. But we'll hang around, and we'll be over here by the plans if you want to come up and look up your property and see what we're planning there. By all means, if there are no more questions, going once, going twice? No? Okay. So for Greg's benefit, Greg Carbox, our transcription is, I'm gonna, oh yes.
Are the visual documents here, are these going to be available online for?
Yes, they will.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Lincoln has a separate.
Okay,